It is our effort at the CLP to build public support for conservation efforts. We want to move forward with ways that we can broaden not just the one-size-fits-all government-to-government solutions that we've seen, but ways that we can bring in local efforts, private sector efforts, market-based voluntary incentives that can move our conservation and preservation efforts forward. We're really interested in what you have to say and what your experiences tell us, how we can craft a direction of good conservation policy that's acceptable to a broad base of people.
The world is changing around all of us, both with the public, shrinking dollars, the increased amount of regulations. And I think what this effort is about is to try to come up with alternative ways to achieve what we really all want to achieve. And I was excited when I heard that the CLP was being organized, because I really see it as a catalyst for a conversation about conservation. And frankly, I would be a user of the information, the papers that they're going to develop.
So what Todd and I, our paper, we're really looking at how can we help these species in conservation purgatory escape? And so we're looking at emerging markets, and I was happy to see that the current Secretary of Agriculture came up with this statement recently. Emerging markets will provide landowners with expanded economic incentive to maintain and restore our forests. So we're starting to think about emerging markets.
And when we think about what we can do for species, we really need to be thinking what we can do for landowners, especially if you frame it in the southeast United States. You think about the longleaf pine forests, over 80% of that land is owned by private forest landowners. Intergenerational transfers on the horizon, land use change, lack of active forest management. If we don't figure out how to get the incentives right, the wood basket of America will no longer be forested.
I'm Larry Voiles, Director with Arizona Game and Fish Department, and with the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies Executive Committee. Given their regulated environment, does it make good business sense for them to partner with the states, create a system of non-advocacy driven science, a system of conservation that can create conservation benefits that reduce their regulatory burden, and at the same time empower the states and enable the states to be able to do the kind of conservation that can turn these pictures around?
I appreciate your comments. I think you're spot on, and it's not a matter of is there an opportunity. I think there's a necessity to create those relationships and figure out what a partnership would look like.
So the focus should be on land quality, not necessarily on land quantity, and we need to replace the sometimes inflexible federal rules that basically don't recognize the competencies that you all have at the state level. We think we can do it well.
I live in Montana. We successfully charge people about $950 just for a license to go hunt an elk, and we don't give them any guarantee they're going to get one. In recent times, I've received thousands of emails from non-hunting wildlife lovers concerned with how we manage wolves, bison, and things like that, none of whom have ever offered to buy a $900 license to go to Yellowstone Park and observe a wolf.
I'm Pat Rexinger. I'm the Director of Fish, Wildlife, and Marine Resources in New York State, and most of what I've heard from is folks in landscapes where you have big pieces of land with few people. How do you envision regulatory predictability and market incentives working in a landscape where you have highly fragmented, high land value, high development pressure? How do you envision it working in like the Northeast or the Mid-Atlantic coastal areas where you do have just this outrageously high pressure on the resource with money that I just can't even imagine dealing with?
Last year, Kent Carter, he's a savvy investor. He's buying up land right now in San Francisco, which is a similar scenario. He's buying up a bunch of land, getting the credits, selling it to the Department of Transportation to expand the 101, getting the money, buying more land for conservation. So there's incentives there. Obviously, it is difficult. It is more difficult, but we're seeing people starting to move in that market.
I think all of you know in your departments, if you're going to get something done, you have to have the people behind you. And these conversations are allowing us to put together an effort to listen to people so that we can develop public policy that will help that sustainable, market-based, private sector, alternative ways that we can really conserve and preserve our land and our air and our water resources to maintain their best productive capacity, but also to maintain them for their future productive capacity over a long period of time.